Hey, thanks for dropping by to watch or listen today. After the chat we had with Natalie from the Barmy Army, I had a look online and there were lots of negative kind of hate tweets for some rival supporters. And I find it disappointing, but more so concerning for the future of the women's game. I'm all for harmless banter, a bit of healthy rivalry, but I sense more hatred and I want to know how we can stop this. So today I've got three Pride of Irons people joining me today, all huge supporters of the women's game as a whole, but two of them especially, they support different men's and women's teams. So first of all, Claire, do you want to just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So, as Joe said, I'm a West Ham fan, part of Pride of Irons, men's season ticket holder. And I got into the women's game, I think about 3 or 4 years ago now, following Arsenal women. I was taken along by my best mate, and just fell in love with the game, really. It was so different from the men's game, and it was a refreshing change. So, yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Zoe?
Yeah, thanks, Joe. Obviously, where I differ is I am a huge Everton men's fan. Most of my family are Evertonians, so I've followed the trend there. I've been a big fan of the women's game and have gravitated towards it probably more so in the last 7 or 8 years. Never really supported a team as such until last season and the season that West Ham women came into the WSL, really like the ethos and have followed them through the championship and the structure that they had come through. So I'm a hammer when it comes to the women's game.
Great stuff. You're also part of West. Love it so much now that you're part of the West Ham United Women's Supporters Club. So that's a brilliant shout as well. But Aimee, over to you.
I'm Aimee, and I've been supporting the club basically since I was born, so for 21 years. And I'm a massive, mega fan. I go along to all the store signings there is, so I've got a whole stack of memorabilia, which is crazy and very expensive. I'm a mega fan of the WSL.
Brilliant. Great stuff, Aim. So look, I'm going to jump straight in because there's four of us. Sometimes it can go on a little bit longer, but I'm still going to try and keep our one short. All right. So, Claire, I'm going to start with you first. Look, we've got rivalry, right? It's about nasty tweets that we're seeing online, right? Do you think this is going to become a bigger problem within women's football?
Unfortunately, I think it is. I think it's one of the things that might creep in as the game gets bigger, which is a good thing in terms of funding and getting more fans to the game. I think, unfortunately, you are going to bring this side of the men's game into the women's game. Yeah, unfortunately, I think it is just going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, Zoe, how do you think we can stop this, really, if we can?
There's no silver bullet to this. I think part of the problem is that the rivalries that were traditional in the women's game within these last 20 or so years, they no longer exist. So, it used to be Arsenal versus Doncaster Rovers Bells, Leeds versus Charlton, Fulham Ladies, and all these clubs, some of them are in the top division now, but a lot of them aren't. So those kind of rivalries that I grew up with seeing in the women's game, they're not there in the slightest. I think what we want to promote is the quality and perhaps highlight some fixtures that have produced classic results in the FA WSL over the last couple of years. And I think that's the only way we can change fans' approaches to it. But I agree with Claire. I just don't, I think it's going to become more and more prevalent as the game tries to, attract a bigger audience, especially of the Euros, which have been delayed.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I feel as a supporter, not only for like my own colours, but for women football as a whole. I think it's the fans' responsibility really as well to ensure that we don't let the feel of this the men spill over onto the women's, and that's what really worries me. I mean, I remember actually I was with you, Claire, to be fair. It was a home match against Arsenal, and we were standing behind the goal, and there was an Arsenal supporter come over, and he swore. He was just swearing, same as he would if he was at Arsenal men's, right? But what happened was, and you even joined in, the majority of us, we all like shouted out to him, hey, stop. We wasn't all in unison, because that would have been brilliant, but there was loads of people shouting him down. And I think that's as our responsibility as fans, and especially as supporters clubs as well, to kind of lead by example. I think that might be the only way we can stop that. I mean, you hear, obviously, you're a season ticket holder, Aimee, as well. So you must hear a lot of these kind of chants and stuff going on, don't you? I hope you don't get involved in them, though, do you?
No.
No, you don't. No. But how do you feel? I mean, when you hear, do you shout things down? We don't hear a lot of it, to be fair, but when we do, you do shout it down, though, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you do hear about it, it does really pee you off to the max. Like, it really does annoy you. And it's like, can't you have some respect? There is younger kids here. Like, that's why it's created, because it's for families as well. It's not just us adults. It's for any age. That's why football's created, for any age.
Yeah.
But you can't. You can't do it. No matter how many campaigns are out there, it's not going to stop it. It's because that social media is out there, and as Zoe and Claire said, no matter how big it's going to get worse and worse, because there's stupid people out there.
Yeah, but we all have to lead by example, right? And I think that's the
Yeah.
way that we can go. I mean, I don't know. Do you think it is really gonna sort of like that same sense of tribalism? Do you think we are gonna get that in the women's match complete? Do you really think that's gonna happen? I'm not sure. I just don't know. What do you reckon? Any of you?
I don't think we're going to see it to the extent that we do see it in the men's game.
Mm.
I think we will have some crossover. There will be some fans who will come over from the men's game who, will try and get into the game by looking at rivalries that are in the men's game and bringing it over. I personally see it, and it goes back to a conversation I remember overhearing on the train last summer during the Women's World Cup. There was a group of 3 guys, and I've never heard it in any of my times commuting into London for work, but they were talking about the Women's World Cup, talking about the quality, that they couldn't believe some of the goals that were scored, and they were like, did you see England? And that's how you go about the change. It's by people respecting the skill. And I think the FA Cup final today has been a superb example of the skill. Everton's goalie was, she's making saves that you see in the men's game, but it doesn't matter. And I think that's how we've got to go about it. We've got to go, it doesn't matter about the rivalries, it's about the quality and how we play and how the players play, because arguably within these last 10 years of the existence of the WSL, the game has changed so much. And I think the quality is what we should shout about, while still saying to people that the comments that they're making about women staying in kitchens, or, they should be cleaning up after people, that's how you challenge them and get rid of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're still, as like the women's supporters, we still have an awful lot to fight for. As you say, today's game, Everton, how on earth did the schedules clash like that? There's no respect. How can you have the Women's Cup final, which is brilliant for visibility because it's on terrestrial TV for everyone to watch, but then what they do, they put the Everton's Premier League match on at the same time? That is lack of respect for women's football, and a brilliant opportunity missed yet again to get more fans behind the women. And I think, I don't want to see all of us fans all fighting amongst each other, because we should be fighting for the best of women's football. But I think that's how we go. Now, Zoe, listen, you touched on basically sexism in social media. Now I feel I'm at the age where I feel protective over all of you girls as well, let alone like my own team, and I get so angry every time Dree and Alicia especially post something on Insta. You always get, I'm not even going to say what these guys write down. So, I mean, Claire, you must see that as well with all the Arsenal tweets. What do you have a strategy as a supporters club as well? Do you fight back or say things, or do you just let the trolls carry on?
It's a hard one. We don't have a strategy with the supporters club. I'll say that straight away. I think the reason I get so frustrated with it is I always think, like, I'm not a fan of golf or motor racing, but I don't like seek out like Lewis Hamilton, for example, just to put something on his social media about what he does, or, you know, like, you should be doing something else. You just you not ignore it, but you just keep scrolling through. Just, you don't have to comment on it, but I think at the same time, a couple I found a couple of examples of when they have sort of had some comebacks come at them, and I think Casey Stoney is one of the best at just shutting people down. One of them was, she was told to not to worry about a game, because there was plenty of ironing and washing up to do. Chop chop was the tweet, and she replied, "I'm actually pretty handy in the kitchen. My chopping skills are very good." But my all-time favourite was actually when somebody told, she tweeted, I think, something about putting a plate or a trophy in the kitchen when she gets back home, and she was like, the person replied, "You, when you get back in the kitchen, you should stay there," and said, "And it'll look good in your kitchen. Yeah, get back in there. That's where you belong." And she responded with, "It will look fabulous in my kitchen next to my oven gloves, ironing board, my 4 FA Cups, 5 League Cups, 2 league titles, European silver medal, World bronze medal, and 130 England caps. It will fit in very nicely." And you know, when you're like, you are superb, like, why can't we just say, how amazing is this? Is just about Casey Stoney, but it could be any of the players. How amazing is Casey Stoney for achieving all of that?
Yeah.
End of story. Why does it have to be, oh, but she's a woman? No, she's just incredible. That's me.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was the same thing with Medina the other day when they were saying, you know, that actually she's the one who's got the record. There's no above the men, and
Yeah.
there was so many tweets, and I never answer to the actual trolls. I think I might have bitten a couple of times actually, where I've been so angry and protective, but I normally just put a positive tweet or,
Yeah.
or something on Insta. I do that, so it's like, great stuff, can't wait, you know, all that kind of thing. Zoe, how do you think about all of this sort of stuff going on?
I mean, it shouldn't be happening, and it doesn't happen to the same extent that it does with the men. If you tackle it from a different perspective, because obviously I work in horse racing, we're very lucky in the sport that I work in that men and women compete at the same level, and you don't see any of these kind of comments. You do see people having a go at a jockey when they've lost a race and someone's lost money, or they're not happy, but that happens to trainers, that happens to other people in the sport. But there's a level playing field in horse racing, and everyone accepts it. It's great. It's one of the best things about the sport, and there's so many great female jockeys. And yet, when it comes to women's sport, it's just people, not all of them, because I don't want to tarnish them all with this brush, but some of them are very narrow-minded about women competing in sport, and I don't like it. There shouldn't be any need for those kind of tweets. The women should be respected for the excellence that they produce on and off the pitch, and Casey Stoney is a prime example.
Yeah.
And there's so many others, and I think, you know, people like Casey going back will, you know, quieten down these voices, but it's not a nice thing at all, because, you know, as a player, how do you deal with that? And for them, it must be so mentally taxing. And at the end of the day, that could turn someone away from the sport or cause an early retirement. And we don't want that.
No, you're right. I mean, a lot, especially like on Insta and stuff, a lot of people post because, especially the women, that they need sponsorship, right? So they've got to have the visibility. They've got to be there in their shirts and stuff. So they've got to post these kind of poses with the football and stuff like that to actually gain more money. So it is really disappointing. And I don't know. It's just that I'm just disappointed it's still happening now, in 2020, that it's still happening now, that the girls have got to put up with all that as well as less pay and everything else. I mean,
I think
sorry,
it's,
Claire, carry on.
I was just going to say it's also bigger than women's football. I think what people forget is you're talking about human beings. And I always think, how would you feel if like all the time, that just that little, they're human, they're human. Any sports person, whether they're male or female, they're humans. And it's going to affect them. And I think people do need to remember that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's like, yeah, I don't want to go too much into the sexism part of everything because it can we this would be a 10-hour show and other people will come on it at the same time. But it was the Aguero incident as well the other week. I've had so many conversations with men and women, all different teams as well, and I'm really surprised that some people are just adamant that oh well, the same thing would have happened in the men's as it, yeah. And it's not that at all. There was intent there was a pause where you don't see that happening you do not see that happening. And again, I think you're right, Claire. I think it's a massive social issue as well, I think, but us as supporters, we have to make sure that we're visible online as well, just putting all the positive tweets out there. And I mean, you like Alex Scott as well, Aimee, right?
She's a pundit quite a bit as well.
Yeah. So
even Karen Carney as well. All of our ex-England players as well. They're all pundits pretty much.
yeah,
And it's like they're getting slated left, right, and centre. And it's like, I try not to put nothing on there because I'll end up getting a backlash, and I know I can't handle backlash pretty bad. But it's not right. Everyone goes mad. Oh yeah, like we've got England in the GB Olympics, blah blah, this and that. You'll go mad for that, but you can't give them the respect. But yet again, you can happily sit behind a computer and slate them off.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
what annoys me.
yeah. Yeah, it's the good and bad of social media, unfortunately, anyway.
Yeah.
But look, we're all getting a little bit angry. I can see us here. So let's make us even more angry by talking. We're just going to hit on it quickly. Look, West Ham United winning ways. I don't know if it's going to be a winning ways. We've already been beaten by Reading once. It's coming up to the Conti Cup on Wednesday. So Claire, I'm going to start off with you. Being an Arsenal fan, what do you reckon the score's going to be?
Well, I did have a look at some of the results that both teams have had, and and I'm looking down the West Ham results, and I'm just thinking, how is this like even happening? Like, what is going on? This is genuinely that was what I was thinking, and I think both teams actually did some good signings over the summer, but also had a good spine of teams already. So I think it's going to be a good game. I think if West Ham can believe it, if they can believe it, they can go out and win 2-1. But I think they have to go out there and believe that they can do it. But I don't see any reason why they can't.
It's crazy. On paper, Claire, you're absolutely right. I don't know. This is what I have actually physically, I have had sleepless nights over some of these scores. Seriously. Zoe, no, actually, Aimee, I'm going to go to you. What do you reckon the score's going to be? All right, let's keep it short and happy and nice. All right. What do you reckon?
Go 3-1.
3-1.
Yeah. Not too bad.
Do you reckon after the international break, you think that would have been good for us and stuff? Yeah.
I think so. Like, if we don't get like Darley injured again and Thomas injured, obviously, because Thomas is obviously Scottish, so he should be away on there. Leon, hopefully she's not injured because she's another key player of ours who's really good. But I mean, as Claire was touching on, like both signings, how we've made really good signings this summer. But yet we've got all the money in the world now. Well, I wouldn't say in the world because City owns that. City kind of beats us on that one because I would have loved to see Lucy Bronze come over. But like we've just signed Rachel Daly. I mean, like, oh my God, we've actually got actual current women's England player on our squad. It's like soon as we can like get everything, more fans coming into the stadium, I mean, like there'd be like more people slating us off, but I think the more fans we can get in, the more we can educate them of why women's football is just as important as men's.
Yeah.
And I think that we have sometimes we have a disappointing run, but I think it's because of injuries as well. And so, like last year, when I watched a documentary, the lack of communication in the squad sometimes. That's what it normally comes down to, is your communication.
Yeah, you're right. It was an eye-opener watching squad goals as well, to be fair. It sort of understood how our season went last year once I watched the squad goals. But you're absolutely right, Aim. I mean, listen, Zoe, what do you reckon?
I'm going to have to be the pessimistic one of the bunch here. I think it's going to be a 4-1 drubbing from Reading. Anyone who knows me, I'm a statistical and analytical nut, and I've looked into it, and we've got less points than we had at this stage last season. And given the other teams around us and how they've improved in the WSL, I believe that we are in a relegation battle. And I haven't seen enough from us to think that we will turn it around after the international break. So unfortunately, I think in a way, I would prefer for us to exit the Continental Cup and focus on the WSL. So for me, I'd rather get the drubbing out of the way and hope that we can turn it around. And I hate being pessimistic because we've got so many good players, as Aimee has touched on. But I just think Reading are several weeks ahead of us in their game plan for the season. And I just can't see how we'll turn it around. Look, I'll hold my hands up. I could be completely wrong. And I will freely admit that I have been wrong in my prediction. But it's just how the way I see it at the moment.
Yeah, I can't see us winning. I'll be honest, I can't at the moment. I think Martha's back though, so that gives us the edge because we've got that out-and-out striker, as I think I've said many occasions. But yeah, it's going to be a tough one for us, and I think I don't know if I could do a score. I think I'm going to go. Do you know what? I'm going to go 2-1. But listen, I just want to thanks to everyone, Aimee, Zoe, Claire, for joining in, and it's so great to really have us all part of a bigger network, because that's what it is to me. We're all in for it for the women's football, right? And that's what we're about. Listen, thanks for watching and listening in. Please subscribe, because it really helps us out and you don't miss anything. And everyone's links will be down in the description. And we have got to go because Claire's got to do the roast dinner for the family. So thanks all again for listening, and I'll catch you again soon. Bye.